there seems to be a war going on between the genders about who's responsible for the downfall of modern day marriage. Now, there's a lot of blaming going on from both sides and very little empathy for how we ended up here, so let's talk about it. So the first comment is from Defenstrator 4660, and I don't know if I can tag him to let him know I'm responding. I don't know. He says, this statistic didn't perpetuate the stereotype of lesbian relationships. It was instead seen as yet another example of how women seem uncommitted to marriage, since they are the ones who initiate divorce in the vast majority of cases. It was like, look, it's not a man problem. Even when women are married to women, they still flake out. And he got a lot of likes for this comment, so this must be what a lot of straight guys believe, right? That women just flake out of their marriages. So first, let me address the comment that even when women are married to other women, they still flake out. Do women really flake out of their marriages to each other? I want to refer back to my first video. I said in my video that in 2019, there were 591 divorces among women in England and Wales. And that number makes up 72% of the same-sex divorces, and that's where the 72% number came from. It's not a divorce rate. And one person commented and said, well, that's a lot of divorces because there's not that many women that get married. And here's his comment. I'll read it. It's from TuberSurfer007. He says, there are way less lesbians in marriages. You're missing the ratio here. 591 of the group they looked at 822 is still extremely high per ratio. Most people are in hetero relationships. Of course you'd have a higher rate. But the point is that 591 of 822 is not a good number. To say it isn't an example of women being the problem in relationships. Okay, so he's saying that 591 of 822 is a large number and shows that women are the problem. And at that time, when I was looking at the ONS census for 2019, it didn't say how many actual marriages there were between women at that time or that year, but I was able to find that out in a different report. Yay! So let's take a look at that. Here's a wonderful chart showing exactly how many same-sex couples in England and Wales, how many marriages there were each year, starting from 2014. If you add all the lesbian marriages from 2014 to 2019, there were 21,967 lesbian marriages, and out of those, there were 591 divorces in 2019. Now, there were other divorces in previous years, of course. Here they are. In 2018, there were 321 divorces. In 2017, there were 250 divorces. 2016, there were 87 divorces. In 2015, there were 22 divorces. And that's a total of 1,271 lesbian divorces out of 21,968 lesbian marriages. And since I don't know how to calculate what percentage of divorce this is, I asked ChatGPT, and let's see what we get. Looks like we get 5%. So 72% versus 5%, that's a pretty big difference. Also, when they say that lesbians make up around 75% of the same-sex divorces, did you notice what I notice here? So let's look closely. Do you see that there are approximately 800 to 1,000 more lesbian marriages each year? So of course there are going to be more divorces. Now, I might be wrong about this. Please let me know how I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong. So back to his comment, saying that 591 out of 822 isn't a good number. Dude, that's if you compare that to how many marriages there were, that's a very low number. So that is so few divorces, y'all. You can't tell me that women can't get along with each other anymore and use that as an excuse anymore. Unfortunately, some people will still believe it, because it's almost impossible to get some people to change their minds once they believe something. But one of the qualities of a psychologically healthy person is the ability to change your mind about something if you're presented with new, valid information, even if it contradicts what you already thought to be true. Now, some people are still going to comment and say, you're wrong, I looked it up, there's a 72% divorce rate with lesbians, I Googled it. So what happens now, if you Google the lesbian divorce rate, these statistics are on various attorneys' websites for marketing purposes, and people just assume that the attorneys' websites are accurate, but they aren't. People just don't understand critical thinking or understanding how to look for citations or references. It's called fact checking, really. And I'll say it again and again and again. We don't have the same-sex divorce statistics in the U.S. because some states don't even turn those in, or they don't identify which marriages are same-sex couples. So we cannot use this argument anymore to say that women can't get along with each other. I'm going to leave all the links to the O&A divorce statistics in the description of this video. If you want to fact check me, that's fine. I could have done my math wrong. I might have gotten any number of things wrong. You can go back and check. So let me know if I did miss something. Number two, let's move on to the argument that women aren't as committed to marriage because they initiate about 70% of divorces. And also, is divorce contagious? Really interesting. It is true that women initiate more divorces. I've never disputed that, but does that really mean that women aren't as committed to marriage? If the opposite were true, if men were the ones initiating 70% of the divorces, I wouldn't be saying that men aren't committed or don't value marriage as much. I would sincerely be asking, why aren't these men satisfied in their marriages? What's going on here? What's behind these numbers? I would want to take a deeper look at what the problems are in the marriages. So let's take a look at the Forbes article that came out just a few weeks ago about why people are getting divorces and what types of couples are staying together. And this article is called Revealing Divorce Statistics in 2024. It says 69% of divorces are initiated by women. Women are far more likely than men to initiate divorce. In fact, nearly 7 in 10 marriage dissolutions are initiated by the female partner. This is based on research involving heterosexual couples. It also says women often carry more of the mental load in a relationship and also take on a primary caregiving role for children. The added burden they face, especially when they feel their support system is lacking, could help explain why they are more likely to initiate divorce. This could be what is happening. I do see a lot of women burned out because they are working outside of the home, because these days most families do need 2 incomes, plus having to do everything else the women have always had to do before with household and childcare duties. And divorce sometimes actually feels like a relief for some women, unfortunately. And when we talk about the mental load, we're referring to things like making the grocery list and meal planning, signing the kids up for soccer and basketball, keeping up with the bills, checking the announcements from the school and responding to emails from the teacher, keeping up with soccer outfit and shoes, making doctor's appointment for the kids and getting them there, keeping up with laundry, baths, cleaning. Women get tired. Now, I know not all men are to blame here. I know some great men who step up to the plate, but I'm just here to show you a different perspective on why it might be that women initiate divorce more often. And sure, some people, men and women, are really impulsive and might leave a marriage unexpectedly. It might seem out of the blue, but what usually happens is a woman will be asking her husband for some changes to be made in the marriage for years and years and years, and she's not taken seriously. She might be told she's overreacting or too sensitive. And I can't tell you how many women I see posting on Instagram saying things like, how can I get my husband to listen to me? How can I get my husband to want to work on our marriage? Now let's look at the top reasons for divorce. So look at this graph. 75% say lack of commitment. 60% is infidelity, 58% too much conflict and arguing, 24% is domestic violence. It goes over all of these here. So just because more women are initiating the divorce doesn't mean they aren't committed to marriage or don't take marriage seriously. For some women that might be true, But in general, I'd say that women see a lack of engagement and connection from their husbands, and they're tired of carrying the mental load of the family. So I'm a couples therapist. I've studied what the research says about why some marriages work and others don't. And we know what it takes to make a marriage work. So Dr. Gottman can predict divorce with a 94% accuracy by watching how couples interact with each other. So I just finished an 11-hour training on Gottman's couples therapy, and all the information is out there. These are in books for anybody to read. And so for all the men out there who feel like they weren't given a fair shot, I'm just wondering if you read any of the Gottman books. I'm just curious. They're written by a man. The Gottmans have been studying couples for 40 years in their love lab. Sounds sexy. It's not really sexy. They can observe how successful couples interact with each other and then teach these skills to other couples. This Forbes article says that the divorce rate has gone down since the year 2000, but so has the number of marriages. So it says the divorce rate has decreased from a rate of 4.0 to 2.5 since 2000. Both the marriage and the divorce rate have declined over time. This Forbes article says 66% of men and 74% of women think their partners should have worked harder to save the marriage. When a marriage ends, there's often plenty of blame to go around. However, many people believe they did all they could to save their marriage, while believing their spouse should have worked harder. In fact, just 32% of men and 33% of women believe they personally should have made more of an effort to prevent the divorce. And I want to show you why everyone, men and women, need to try really hard to heal their marriage and not jump into divorce too quickly. It says here, divorcees are more likely to die earlier than married people. Divorce can have surprising and long-lasting consequences. One of these consequences is an increased risk of early death. Sadly, the mortality rate is 1363 per 100,000 for divorcees, compared with 779 per 100,000 for married couples. So that's a big difference. That's almost twice as many premature deaths with people who are able to stay married. Divorced men bear the brunt of this increased risk, with mortality rates of 1772 per 100,000 compared to divorced women with the mortality rate of 1095. So men seem to rely more on their wives for socialization. We know that men struggle with getting help medically or going to regular doctor's appointments, and sometimes it's their wives who have to encourage them and support them to do these things. So men don't seem to fare very well after divorce, and that's not good. We want more healthy marriages. And also, look at this. Having friends who are divorced increases your risk of divorce. So the marital stability within a couple's social network also plays a role in whether their union lasts. Couples who have friends who divorce have a 75% increase in the risk of their own marriage ending. Even couples with 2 degrees of separation from divorce still have a 33% greater risk. Because of this link, some sociologists believe divorce is a social contagion. So when some men say women encourage each other to divorce too soon, that could be true. We tend to be friends with people who have the same types of lifestyles we have. So choose your friends. There are a lot of good men out there who feel invisible, and I get that. About 50% of young men are deciding to stay out of the dating pool altogether, but I don't really think that's the answer either. So some men are saying that marriage is just too much of a risk these days, and actually not getting married is a big risk too, as we can tell from what I said previously about loneliness. And I think a good middle of the road solution would be for men and women to start doing some healing on themselves, have some insight into their own dating patterns and what isn't working for them, and then do something different. So that change starts within yourself. It's not everybody else's fault. Let's stop the blame game and have some compassion on what both genders are going through in our world. So modern dating is hard for both genders. So this idea of marrying for love is only about 200 years old. We don't know how to do it yet. And also keep in mind that 50% of marriages are people staying together because of negativity bias. We're more prone to look at the negative things in the world and dwell on them, but I'm going to choose to see the glass half full. It makes me feel better to see the glass half full, and most of life is about your state of mind. So please don't get so bogged down in negativity and blaming the other gender that you lose all your hope in humanity and don't take responsibility for your own life and your own destiny. So we've all had a broken heart. I know I have, but I've never given up on love, and now I am happily married. And I'm glad I didn't decide to just crawl into a dark hole and just throw in the towel and complain on YouTube all day about how terrible women are. That's not the life I want to live, and that's not meaningful to me. So thanks for listening. Please leave me a comment, but be kind, be curious, show up for yourself, and start doing your own healing journey. So socialize as if your life depends on it, because it really does.